Ever picked a word in Terraria and saw something like ruthless, godly, or broken and thought, what the heck does it even mean? Well, get ready, because today we are diving into modifiers. How they work, what the best ones, and how goblin thinking can turn your gear from the weak to wow. What's up, bro? My name is Mimosinha, and if you love Terraria tutorials, tips, and cool guides like this one, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. So, who is this magical little guy that is make your gear unsolved? The Goblin Tinker is an NPC you can find after defeating the Goblin Invasion. Then search for him tied up in the cavern layer and just feed him, and he will move to your base. He sells cool stuffs, but the best one is the Reforge. So here you can reforge items. So let's talk about that. Modifiers, also known as prefixes, are special bonus or penalties random add in your weapons, tools, and accessories. They can change things like damage, speed, knockback, mana, usage, defense, modify speed, and more. So let's dive into that. First, let's talk about accessories modifiers. For defense, you can reforge your accessories modifiers to have the hard modifiers that applies +1 defense, the armored modifier that applies +3, the warding +2, and the best one, warding +4. And for critical strike, the best one is the luck +4% critical strike chance, and the second best is the precise +2%. And let's go to the damage. We have 4 damage. One is spiked +2, the best one menace +4% damage, a little one jagged +1%, and the other one the angry +3%. And move speed, we have brisk +1%, the best one quick +4%, flattering +2%, and hasty +3%. And for the melee speed, so you can hit fast with melee weapons, we have intrepid +3%, rash with 2%, wild +1%, the best one violent +4%. And mana, we just have this little one, arcane +20 mana, and that's all for the accessories. So let's go to universal modifiers. So the modifiers that can apply in a lot of things, like flails, web spears, yo-yos, boomerangs, chainsaws, drills, codefit, jackhammer, and a lot more. One of the best is the demoniac, that applies 15% of damage and 5% of critical strike chance. The other better one, that's for summon weapons, is ruthless, that applies 18% of damage but minus 10% of knockback. Superior is a good one, 10% of damage, 3% of critical strike, plus 10% of knockback. Strong is only good for knockback, plus 15% of knockback. Zealous is only good for crit, plus 5% for crit strike chance. Queen is not good at all, but it's okay, plus 3% of crit chance strike. Unpleasant is good because 5% damage and 15% of knockback. Weak, that's not good at all, it's minus 20% knockback. Damage is one of the worst, minus 15% damage. Hurtful is good, plus 10% of damage. Broken is the worst, minus 30% of damage and minus 20% of knockback. Shoddy, it's one worst, minus 10% of damage and minus 15% of knockback. Forceful is good for knockback, plus 15% of knockback, and one of the best, godly, plus 15% of damage, plus 5% critical strike chance, and plus 15% of knockback. So that's the universal modifiers that can apply in a lot of weapons, a lot of tools, and spears, flares, boomerangs, chainsaws, drills, and yada yada. And let's go to the common modifiers that applies to swords, the ranged weapons, magic, and summon. Starting with nasty, plus 5% of damage, plus 11% of speed, plus 12% of critical strike chance, and minus 10% of knockback. It's a good modifier. The agile one, plus 11% of speed, plus 3% of critical strike chance. The one is not good is sluggish, minus 21% of speed. Nimble, just plus 4% of speed. Deadly, it's a good one, plus 11% of damage and plus 11% of speed. The quick, 11% of speed. The slow, minus 14% of speed, bad one. The worst, annoying one, minus 20% of damage, minus 14% of speed. Lazy, minus 7% of speed. And finally, murderous, that's good one, plus 7% of damage, 7% of speed, and 3% of critical strike chance. So we end the commons modifiers, and let's go dive into the melee modifiers that plays into the melee weapons. I have a lot of modifiers that applies, and let's go dive. One bad one is tiny, minus 18% of size, so your apple is a little small. The shameful one, minus 11% of damage, plus 10% of size, and minus 20% of knockback. One of the best is legendary, and plus 15% of damage, plus 11% of speed, plus 5% of critical strike, plus 10% of size, and plus 15% of knockback. Massive one, plus 18% of size, so can happen are a big one. The large one is plus 12% of size. Dangerous one, plus 5% of damage, plus 2% of critical strike, plus 5% of size. Broken, plus 5% of damage, minus 14% of speed, plus 10% of size, plus 10% of knockback. Savage, plus 11% of damage, plus 10% of size, and plus 10% of knockback. Dull, minus 15% of damage. Small, minus 10% of size. Point, plus 11% of damage. Heavy, minus 11% of speed, plus 15% knockback. Sharp, plus 15% of damage. Terrible is the worst one, minus 15% of damage, minus 13% of size, minus 15% of knockback. Light, plus 14% of speed, minus 10% of knockback. For the last, unhappy, minus 11% of speed, minus 10% of size, and minus 10% of knockback. So that's all for the melee weapons. Now we have the modifiers focus on ranged. Awkward, minus 11% of speed, minus 20% of knockback. Reforge, minus 16% of speed and minus 10% of velocity. Speed is attack speed and velocity is velocity of the project. One of the best, Unreal, plus 16% of damage, plus 11% of speed, plus 5% of critical chance strike, plus 10% of velocity, plus 15% of knockback. Rapid, plus 16% of speed, plus 10% of velocity. Staunch, plus 11% of damage, plus 15% of knockback. Powerful, plus 16% of damage, minus 11% of speed, plus 1% of critical chance strike. Sighted, plus 11% of damage, plus 3% of critical strike. Resting, plus 11% of speed, plus 15% of velocity. Intimidate, plus 5% of velocity, plus 15% of knockback. One other good one, that's Deadly, 11% of damage, 5% of speed, plus 2% of critical strike, 5% of velocity, 5% of knockback. Harmful, minus 16% of damage, minus 10% of velocity, minus 10% of knockback. And Frenzying, minus 16% of damage, plus 16% of speed. And that's all for the ranged weapons special modifiers. So let's dive into the magic and summon special modifiers. Manic, minus 11% of damage, plus 11% of speed, minus 10% of mana cost. Taboo, plus 11% of damage, plus 10% of mana cost, plus 10% of knockback. Celestial, plus 11% of damage, minus 11% of speed, minus 10% of mana cost, plus 10% of knockback. Mystic, plus 11% of damage, minus 10% of mana cost. Adept, minus 10% of mana cost. Deranged, minus 11% of damage, minus 10% of knockback. One of the best, Mythical, plus 14% of damage, plus 11% of speed, plus 5% critical strike chance, minus 10% mana cost, and plus 15% of knockback. Masterful, plus 14% of damage, minus 10% of mana cost, plus 5% of knockback. Intense, plus 11% of damage, plus 10% mana cost. Inept, plus 10% of mana cost. Ignorant, minus 11% of damage, plus 20% of mana cost. The worst. Furious is good for damage, plus 14% damage, plus 20% of mana cost, plus 15% of knockback. And that's it, that's all bros, that's all the modifiers we can explain in this video. We have some little tips and practice, and here the final, some tips for reforging like a pro. Always reforge your endgame first, don't waste your coins on stuff you will replace in 10 minutes. So now you know how the modifiers work, how to reforge the Goblin Tinker with the prefix you look out for. It's total game changer when you're maxed out. Let me know in the comments what the best modifiers you ever got in Terraria. I wanna hear your lucky stories. If this helped, hit the like button, subscribe if you love Terraria tips, and I will see you in the next adventures. And subscribe to Mimosinha!